This is Will from Xineering and ShockSims.com. Today I'm going to show you how to install non-Magneride struts and bypass the suspension light and speed limiter on your Magneride equipped 2015 to 2020 GM truck or SUV. Now to tools. Outside of a torque wrench, jack stands, floor jack, and a tire iron, you'll need an impact drill, a ratchet and extensions, a T15 Torx, sockets in 21, deep 18, 15, and 10mm sizes, and wrenches in 21mm, 18mm, and 15mm sizes. We will start by disconnecting the battery with a 10mm and a long extension. Using a tire iron or a 22mm and a breaker bar, break all the lugs. I highly suggest you do both the front struts at the same time. Today I will only show you the passenger side. Here are the locations for the floor jack and jack stand. Raise the vehicle enough for the wheel to have a 1 inch or so clearance from the ground. Remove your lugs and put the wheel to the side. Using the 15mm socket and a wrench, loosen your sway bar end links. You want to loosen it enough for the hub and brake assembly to flex downward. In our case, the bushings were shot, so we removed and replaced them. Using the 15mm socket, loosen the lower mounting bolts of the strut. Continue removing with the impact. I know it's a shiny socket on an impact. Please don't call the mechanic police. Now with those out and the end links out, we can see the flex we gain. At the top of the shock, we have the top hat. You'll see small plastic retainers. You can use a flathead screwdriver to pry these up and off the studs. Since this is a Magneride vehicle, you will need to unplug the shock via this black connector. Pull the gray tab away from the connector, then press down on it to disconnect. Cut the gray zip tie. Now I have your blank shock connector plugs that can be purchased with our bypass kit. These help keep the vehicle's side of the harness safe from the elements. Push all the way until the tab of the connector seats, then push the gray tab back in. Tuck it away with some zip ties and you're all set there. With the 18mm wrench, break all the nuts on the studs of the top hat. I would say the passenger side is arguably harder than the driver, thanks to all these hoses. Here are the 3 top hat nuts we just broke loose. With the long extension and the deep 18, go through the engine bay and remove the nuts. You may have to use a chair or stool to help reach into the engine bay. When we remove the strut assembly, push down so the top hat studs clear the mounting holes. Slide out the lower bolt points, then allow the assembly to go down into the lower control arm, pull it up and out. You can see how gross this Magneride shock is. Most of the fluid is on the outside of the strut, and the bushing for the lower mount is shot. Good thing we don't have to go buy another one for $900. The Monroe Quick Strut part number 139104 we are installing comes with new hardware, but I'd rather use these threaded clips. With the assembly out, remove the threaded clips from the lower mounting points. A pair of pliers or a flathead screwdriver should work well. I like to give them a nice squeeze in case I overstretch them taking them off. Now we can put in the Monroe quick strut. Notice the bolt pattern, 2 studs to the inside of the vehicle, 1 to the outside. Just reverse the steps of the removal. Flex the wheel and the brake assembly down to allow the lower mount to line up to the lower control arm. Using the new hardware, install the lower 15mm bolts by hand, then run them about halfway with a ratchet or impact, giving us slack to work with up top. Reinstall the 18mm nuts to the top hat studs by hand. Go back in the engine bay with the D18 and extension to run them the rest of the way down. Using the 18mm, tighten the bolts to 37 foot-pounds. Reinstall the plastic wire harness retainers to their correct studs. With the 15mm, tighten the lower mounting bolts and tighten to 37 foot-pounds as well. Now to the back of the vehicle. Break your lugs. Here's your floor jack and jack stand locations. Again, we highly suggest doing both rear struts at the same time. I will only be showing you the passenger side, which is way harder than the driver. You'll see why in a moment. With the wheel gone, we will start at the top of the strut. Both the front and rear are Magneride shocks on Z95 vehicles. Pry the connector from the frame and unplug. Optional, install the rest of the blank shock connectors. Push until you hear the click and push the gray tab back in. We will zip tie it in place later. This Magneride shock is also an air shock to help when the rear is under a lot of weight during towing or hauling. Disconnect the air line by rotating the metal clip 90 degrees. Use the T15 Torx bit to remove the wheel well liner screw above the shock. Remove the push retainer with a flathead or removal tool. This gives us more space around the upper mounting bolt. Grab your 21mm socket, extension, and ratchet. We will need to go over the frame and inside the upper mounting bracket, hiding the 21mm head of the upper mounting bolt. On the nut of the bolt, use your 21mm wrench to loosen the bolt as you hold the ratchet in place. This helps ensure the ratchet doesn't fall off the head of the bolt. With a 21mm in the ratchet, make your way to the lower mounting bolt. If you don't have a breaker bar, you can slot the floor jack handle over the ratchet handle to break the bolt loose. Remove the nut. Bring the floor jack to the lower bolt mount and raise the rear axle just enough to allow the bolt to slide out. Back to the top, you can finish removing the upper mounting bolt. You will need to be patient fishing the bolt from the cupped area. The smaller the hands, the better. This is the AC Delco rear air shock. The year-specific part numbers are on the screen. Feed the lower portion of the strut with the air fitting facing the rear. It should look like this. Feed the upper mounting bolt through the top of the shock. Again, the smaller the hands, the better. Do the same on the lower bolt, but tighten to 85 foot-pounds. Go back to the top and snug tightly with a wrench. You can ratchet the bolt for the first few turns with the wrench. Once it tightens, you'll need a quarter turn until snug, and then tighten to 85 foot-pounds. Reinstall the air fitting, again turning 90 degrees to unlock, then back 90 degrees to lock. Reinstall the push retainer and T15 screw. Now we can check that the air lines are sealed correctly. Start the vehicle and wait for the compressor to turn on. Once on, it will run only until the system is pressurized, no more than a few seconds. When you started the vehicle, you most likely saw a service suspension message. This is where OBD-SS comes in. Locate the OBD2 port and plug it in. It will bypass the old missing Magneride shocks and get rid of the message and speed limiter. And it even turns itself off when no traffic is seen. Notice when I start the vehicle and communication traffic is seen, the red light turns on. And if I turn the vehicle off and wait a moment, the unit goes back to sleep. Here you can see whenever the unit is plugged in, the messages are not present. And when the unit is removed, the messages come back. It's that simple. Thanks for watching. We hope this install helps with any shock install for 2015 to 2020 GM trucks and SUVs. Head to our website to get your Magneride bypass for your Z95 truck or SUV and tons of other GM vehicles as well. See you in the next one.